All right, welcome back to Top Story on RFX, where I take a look at some mainstream news headlines and give my first impressions. Today's game is Titanfall 2 yet again. Now, you might ask, why are you playing Titanfall 2 when Cyberpunk 2077 just came out? Well, I'll tell you why. I bought the game last night, and I use an Xbox One S, which is essentially the base model of the Xbox One. And the game, as many people found out last night along with me, looks like absolute crap on a base model Xbox. This is what really bugs me about that. CD Projekt Red, they knew this before they released the game, right? It's not like they didn't think to test the game on a regular Xbox One, right? It's not like they just, oh shucks, we just totally forgot to test it on what a base model Xbox One or a base model PS4. We had no idea. No, they knew fully well how freaking terrible the game looks on a base model, current / just recently last generation console like the Xbox One. Now, if you know that, you should have just said, this is a game that is designed to play on next-gen consoles. You should have told people, look, this game is, really high-end. It is designed, or it is meant to be played on a next-gen console that has that higher processing power so that you can actually get the graphics and gameplay that you've been looking at on YouTube videos for the past several months, if not years. Now, let's take a look at the top news headlines on Google News. You'll notice that the top two are both from CNN, or at least theoretically news headlines. But if you look at the bottom three, they're all opinion pieces. So there's this tiny little fine print word says opinion after the number of hours ago that this was published. Why would you publish opinion pieces in your top news box? That doesn't make any sense to me. These are headlines. This is what the top news is. If you want an opinion piece, if you want an opinion column, then that's something you should look deeper into the newspaper for, but that shouldn't be, the majority of the stories in your top news headlines box. That doesn't make much sense to me. So, of course, when you read them, like when you read this last one here that says Trump's last-ditch effort to steal the election is the biggest farce of all. Obviously, that is a very, very opinionated type of headline. But I think for the casual observer who's just sort of, waltzing through life, and they check out their iPhone to see what the top stories are, and they see right in the very top story box, they see this thing that says Trump's last-ditch effort to steal the election is a giant farce. They look at that as if it's a headline. They're not really paying attention to the fact that the fine print right below it says opinion. They're just seeing that and they're saying, that stupid Trump and his fucking stupid efforts to steal the election. What a jerk. What I also love is that just below the top news headlines is a story saying Sun launches explosion of electromagnetic energy towards Earth, geomagnetic storm watch issued. I mean, that sounds like something from a post-apocalyptic movie to me. The sun launches explosion of electromagnetic energy towards Earth. I'm assuming that this is no big deal. For all I know, the sun launches explosions of electromagnetic energy at Earth every single day, and nobody's the wiser, and it doesn't affect me at all. This sort of reminds me, in a way, of the UFO story that's been developing over the past few years that really got kicked off, and I think it was 2017 when the New York Times ran that story that exposed the footage that a couple different Navy pilots had recorded, I forget which years, showing these unidentified flying objects, although I think the military now calls them UAPs, unidentified aerial phenomenon. And here's this thing, you have the military and senior officials now coming forth to the public saying, we've got footage of straight up UFOs. We don't know what they are. They're definitely not made on Earth. And we have no idea. We have no idea what's going on with that. It's probably aliens. And yet somehow this is not the top story every single day around the world. Instead, we're focused on, whatever Trump's latest tweet was or whatever else. And it really blows my mind that you have senior officials from the Pentagon or in government. You have like the former Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid. He's apparently super into UFOs, making public statements talking about how, oh sure, yeah, the government has tons of material from recovered craft that it hasn't released to the public. Oh, it's got tons of evidence, and we've been tracking these UFOs for years. We have no idea what they are. Their propulsion systems are not of this world, completely defy physics, and yes, this is something that really is going on right now, and nobody cares. Yeah, nobody cares. Nobody, it's like, yeah, fuck, well, alright, fine, maybe they're aliens, maybe they're interdimensional beings, I don't give a fuck. Just wake me up if they actually land on the White House lawn and actually start talking to us. But before then, I don't give a shit. If aliens want to fly around in the skies and stuff, yeah, whatever. I'm just going to keep going on with my daily life. All right, moving on to our next headlines here. We have one here from CNN that says, Hunter Biden under federal criminal investigation. Now, I'm going to just point out the obvious that a lot of conservative commentators have been talking about for the past 24 hours. Don't you remember just a few short weeks ago, just prior to the actual election itself, the presidential election, when all the stuff about Hunter Biden and his, possible dirty business dealings or ties to China or whatever else, well, that was all fake news. That was possibly maybe even a Russian plot to undermine Biden or whatever other kind of stuff. It was fake news. It was bogus. It was a conspiracy theory. I think Biden came out in one of his presidential debates saying that, look, I've got like 50 previous intelligence officials, high-level officials, and heads of the CIA, which have all said this is total nonsense, and that's all you need to know. This is just another outrageous Trump lie, etc., etc. And yet now that the election's over, and let's be honest, Biden is going to be the next president of the United States. He is, no matter what happens in the courts. I find it extremely unlikely that Trump would be the president for the next 4 years. That's just not going to happen. So now that Biden is basically totally secure in the fact that he's going to be the president now apparently they can release this story and suddenly it's not fake news anymore. Here's my theory on what's going to happen. The Hunter Biden story is going to continue over the next several months or over the next, maybe year or so, and it's going, more and more revelations will come forth, and President Biden will then be embroiled in this growing scandal, and eventually the wonderful Kamala Harris will approach him in the Oval Office on a dark and cloudy day and say, look, you gotta go. And I'll give you the option of saying it's for health reasons due to your age, which will preserve your legacy. You don't have to go out in a scandal. You get to say that you stepped down for the right reasons because you care about America, and the history books will look at you as a good guy. But you gotta step down. And it's my turn now to be president. That's my prediction. Moving on to the next headlines here, we have one from the Washington Post saying, White House proposes dramatically lower unemployment benefit in exchange for $600 stimulus check. Now, I'm not an economist. I'm not. I don't know what $600 can really do for anybody. Most people who live in the modern world understand that unless you're talking about numbers in the thousands, at least, you're not going to make much of a difference in terms of people's overall financial situation. That's just a reality today. $600, if you've lost your job, or if your business has been forced to shut down, or if you're, let's say, a waiter or waitress, or let's say you work in a nail salon, or you own a nail salon, or you're a bartender, or you're, any other number of service profession that has been shut down due to the lockdowns, $600 isn't gonna do shit. Like, for most people, rent alone is at least somewhere in the ballpark of $1,000. And so especially if you're living in any kind of an urban area, it's going to be significantly higher than that. If you're living in a more remote area, then it's at least going to be $600 like this stimulus check. So maybe this check will cover 1 month's rent. That says nothing about health insurance costs or groceries or any other kind of thing, car insurance, car payments, any of it. So I don't understand what $600 given, put into people's pockets. Like, hey, I'll take it, $600, great. It's nice to receive a $600 check from anybody for any reason. But if you're talking about pulling people out of the economic abyss, what the fuck does $600 do? It does nothing for anybody. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm not an economist and I don't know what I'm talking about, but I think this is one of those things that when you are, let's say, an economic expert and you're looking at society as this macro level system that you're trying to manipulate by moving numbers here and moving numbers there, you say like, well, overall, like if each single person has $600 extra in their pocket, then that means that like spending will increase by X percentage points and therefore this economic indicator will be a little bit better or that, or that's the way they're looking at it. But when you look at it from the perspective of just a single solitary human being who's lost their job and has, several months of rent that hasn't been paid at this point, they're close to eviction, or they've lost their house, or whatever else, they're in dire financial straits, and says, well, here's $600. I mean, you almost want to tear it up just out of spite to say fuck you and your fucking $600 while you just gave $1 trillion to gigantic corporations or Wall Street or whatever else. That's all I'm saying. I could be wrong. Maybe I'm wrong. It's easily possible. Okay, so we have one here in the health section here of Google News. It says, internal CDC report says racism is making COVID-19 deadlier for Black Americans. And this is from Yahoo News. First of all, who in the world uses Yahoo anymore? Nobody uses Yahoo anymore, right? Nobody does. I don't know what Yahoo News is, but I doubt very many people get their news from Yahoo News. Nobody uses Yahoo. Yahoo is dead. And so they're very, very desperate to drive traffic towards their website. And so when you have a headline like this, it really, really makes you want to click on it. And it doesn't matter which side of like the political spectrum you're on. If you're someone who's a very woke social justice warrior type, you want to click on it to be like, is it? I bet it is. I knew it was. The fucking racism. Like, that's what you're going to be thinking. And then if you're the anti-social justice warrior type, you're like, my fucking God, yet another fucking headline that's trying to put racism into every single issue. And oh my God, this pisses me off so much. I got to click on it to see what it says. That's what they're doing. This is using a controversial topic that essentially pisses people off, and it pisses everybody off. It pisses everybody on the political spectrum off. If you're on the left, it pisses you off because it confirms your idea that racism is absolutely everywhere and destroying lives. And then if you're on the right, it confirms your notion that people are blaming racism for absolutely everything and how ridiculous that is. And so this headline pisses everybody off, but because it pisses people off, that's what makes them want to click on it. And so I feel like that's one of the things about the news these days, in spite of all the flowery rhetoric about how, we need to bring people together, what the news really does is it intentionally pokes you with like an iron poker, and just so that you'll pay attention to it. Okay, I have a piece here on the Washington Post. Now, granted, this is in the perspective section, so it's not exactly a news piece, but let's just take a quick look at this piece. And I will break precedent, and I will click on this piece, because when I read it, I gotta say it's something that needs to be said. Now, the title of this piece is, Take Off Your Mask. Customers have found a way to make sexual harassment even more of a hazard. And this is by Monica Hesse, or Hesse. Not sure how it's pronounced. So let's take a quick look at this piece. Now, I'm not going to go through the whole piece, just going to look at the top couple of lines. The upside to wearing a mask at work was that at least it would curtail the harassment. As a server, Sandy Tran was used to unwanted comments on her appearance, but the coronavirus precautions enforced by her Dallas restaurant now required full-time face coverage, a literal barrier between Tran and creepy customers. Now, it's important to realize, just think for a second what this is arguing for. In the Muslim world, why do women wear the headscarf? Why do they wear the hijab? Why do they wear the niqab in Saudi Arabia, which is the part that covers the entire face? Or the burqa in Afghanistan, which truly covers the entire head, face, and body, and you're just looking through a opaque screen in front of your eyes. The reason is so that you cover up women entirely, so that lust-crazed men will not harass them or do anything that might make the women feel uncomfortable. Now, the hijab, and then especially the niqab, and definitely the burqa, would be seen in a liberal Western society as a sign of female oppression, right? Nobody looks at someone wearing a burqa in Taliban-controlled Afghanistan and suggests that this is a sign of women's liberation. Yet in the mind of Monica Hesse, the columnist who wrote this story, without probably even realizing it, that's exactly what she's talking about. She's saying that having to wear a mask that covers up your entire face is a blessing to women because they now have a barrier between themselves and creepy customers, i.e. men. Just food for thought there. Just let that one sink in. That's what and I would have no doubt that Monica Hesse would describe herself as a tip-of-the-spear progressive feminist. That is what she's arguing for. So perhaps she would like to wear a burqa. Maybe she'd like that, and then no men would ever have to comment on her. Nobody would ever look at her in a lascivious way or catcall at her. And don't get me wrong, I don't condone that behavior. Guys that do that, they're fucking animals. I mean, when guys do that, if you have so little self-control that when you see an even mildly attractive woman, walking down the street, you can't stop yourself from making some obscene comment or whistling at her, or hey baby, why don't you come over here and sit on my lap? If you're some guy who can't resist saying that upon seeing a beautiful woman, or even a semi-attractive woman, if that's the case, well, look, you're a fucking idiot. Okay, you're a complete fucking idiot, and it sucks that people like you exist, but they do. But I don't think that the answer is that women should need to be covered from head to toe in a fucking burqa, or let's just start with a fucking medical face mask for starters. What should happen instead is that when some guy makes a comment like that, other people, whether it's men or women in the surrounding area, should turn to him and say, shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck, what are you, a fucking idiot? Get the fuck out of here. You should say that to the guy, and that's it. But you shouldn't have women wearing face masks just so that they can feel more comfortable around creepy customers. Just my thought on that one. All right, we have another headline here from the Huffington Post, which is always one of my favorites. It says here, Republicans embrace election lies and Trump's GOP vice grip. If you're going to write a headline like this, just stop beating around the bush. Just stop beating around the bush. Don't write this convoluted headline that's all stupid. Just write a big fat headline that says Republicans are assholes. Just write that. Stop with this passive aggressive thing where you're kind of skirting the issue. No. Just say what you actually mean. Don't write Republicans embrace election lies and Trump's GOP vice grip. Just say Republicans are cowards or Republicans are dicks. Just write that. That's clearly what you think, so just write it. Don't write this other shit. Don't pretend to be a news outlet. Just say what you actually think. You think the GOP sucks, you think Trump sucks, and just have that be your headline. Just write at the top of the page, Republicans suck and Trump sucks even worse. That's all you need to do. Just have that be your permanent headline every single day, and it would be so much more honest. That's all I can say to the Huffington Post about that, and quite frankly, that applies to virtually every other mainstream news outlet. Just say what you mean. Stop saying. I remember there was a headline a few days ago. Melania Trump cheers new tennis court pavilion as pandemic rages, and you're like, look, that's a very passive aggressive way of saying she's a cold-hearted bitch. So why don't you just say that? Why don't you just say Melania Trump is a cold-hearted bitch? Just say that. You don't do this passive-aggressive shit where she cheers a tennis pavilion while a pandemic is happening. And you know what? People like me who are very much against you, we would respect you more. We would like you more. I would have more respect for what you were doing if you just came out and said what you actually fucking meant and didn't do all this beating around the bush shit. Just say what you mean. Just have your headline literally say, we hate Trump. We hate Republicans. We think these people suck. Just say that.
Stop trying to pretend that you're a news organization anymore. You're not. You are a partisan operative. You are working for a specific side on the political divide in this country. You are not an objective news organization. Stop pretending to be. Just say what you mean. And that's all I got to say about that. And on that happy note, I'm going to conclude this episode of Top Story. And we'll catch you next time. Have a good one, everybody. Bye-bye.